What happens to a dream when its dreamers fade to silence? From sun-splashed palaces, where Charlie Chaplin danced at dawn, to canyon hideaways echoing with Clark Gable's laughter, dozens of once glittering estates now lie in ruins, haunted by champagne whispers and untold heartache. Tonight we push open ivy-choked gates, tracing the triumphs, scandals, and tragedies that forced Hollywood royalty to abandon their private kingdoms. Stay to the end, because behind every cracked fountain and boarded window waits one last gasp of forgotten glamour. Pickfair, Mary Pickford, and Douglas Fairbanks. Imagine arriving at the wrought iron gates of Pickfair in the 1920s, where banners of bougainvillea framed a Tudor facade and Charlie Chaplin might greet you in the foyer. Built as a country retreat in 1911 and purchased by America's sweetheart, Mary Pickford, and swashbuckler Douglas Fairbanks in 1918, the 18-acre estate quickly became Hollywood's unofficial royal court, its guest book reading like a who's who of Einstein, H.G. Wells, and international heads of state. After Fairbanks's death and Pickford's increasingly reclusive final years, the once vibrant mansion sat shuttered, curtains drawn against time. Following Pickford's 1979 death, neglect nibbled at carved oak panels until, in 1990, new owner Pia Zadora leveled all but a guest wing, blaming termites and restless ghosts for erasing the landmark that Life magazine once ranked only slightly less important than the White House. Today, a Venetian-style palazzo stands in its place for corporate retreats, but the original Pickfair survives only in rumor and a kidney-shaped pool that still reflects lost glamour. Falcon Lair, Rudolph Valentino. Perched above Benedict Canyon, Rudolph Valentino's Falcon Lair was equal parts fortress and fantasy. 16 rooms ringed by 9-foot walls to keep swooning fans at bay. Valentino christened the 4-acre Spanish Revival spread in 1925, filling it with imported Italian cypresses and Arabian horses before his shocking death the next year. Creditors auctioned the contents. Whispers said his velvet-lined bedrooms still echoed with tango music on windswept nights. Heiress Doris Duke safeguarded the property from 1953 to 1993, but after her passing, stalled renovations left hallways gutted and windows rattling in Santa Ana winds. In 2006, the decayed main villa was demolished. Only the gatehouse and an open-air chapel remain, perched like silent extras on a backlot awaiting their next scene. Developers talk of rebuilding, yet canyon hikers swear Valentino's silhouette still lingers in the moonlit ruins. Mulholland Farm, Errol Flynn. Errol Flynn's hilltop ranch once boasted a turquoise pool, stables patterned after Vienna's Lipizzaner stalls, and clandestine peepholes where the Pirate King spied on unsuspecting guests. Built in 1941 on 11.5 acres off Mulholland Drive, the farm hosted raucous, champagne-drenched parties that cemented Flynn's devil-may-care legend. After his 1959 death, the house cycled through owners, most notably rock and roll idol Ricky Nelson, but by the 1980s, squatters lit fires in empty salons and coyotes prowled cracked tennis courts. A blaze and years of vandalism left the frame charred. In May 1988, bulldozers erased its colonial bones. Today, pop star Justin Timberlake's glass-box mansion occupies the ridge, yet locals claim Flynn's laughter still echoes when the marine layer creeps over the valley at dusk. The Minnelli Mansion, Vincente and Liza Minnelli, built in 1925 and later remodeled in sleek Hollywood Regency style by architect John Elgin Wolfe, the sugar-pink Beverly Hills villa of director Vincente Minnelli glimmered with Oscar night soirees and the scent of gardenias from Judy Garland's corsage. After Minnelli's 1986 death, his will gifted lifetime access to widow Lee, while daughter Liza handled the estate. When Liza sold the property in 2002, a bitter legal standoff left 94-year-old Lee living by candlelight as staff toiled unpaid. The mansion changed hands again in 2006. Uncertainty and mounting repair costs froze any restoration plans. Nearly 2 decades on, the house stands abandoned behind ivy-strangled gates, too entangled in lawsuits and Hollywood lore for developers, too fragile for preservationists. Its Art Deco mirrors clouded, reflecting only memories of Gigi waltzes that once floated through its atrium. Harlow-Bern House, Jean Harlow and Paul Bern. Nestled in Benedict Canyon, the Bavarian-style cottage at 9820 Easton Drive looks whimsical, until you remember MGM producer Paul Byrne's mysterious 1932 gunshot death, found by staff while bride Jean Harlow wept on studio sound stages. Dubbed Hollywood's cursed love nest, the house later harbored celebrity hairstylist Jay Sebring, whose close friend Sharon Tate confided chilling visions of a bloodied intruder while staying there, a year before both were murdered by the Manson family. Current owners swear the turreted hideaway is peaceful, yet visitors report cold spots near the staircase where Tate claimed to see a throat-slashed specter. The structure still stands, privately occupied, its honeycomb windows glowing faintly at night. A fairy tale shell preserving tragedies no one can renovate away. The Pink Palace, Jane Mansfield and Mickey Hargitay, cotton candy stucco, heart-shaped pool, gold-leaved cupids on every ceiling. Jane Mansfield's Pink Palace was Hollywood's loudest love letter to 1950s excess. The actress bought the Spanish mansion on Sunset Boulevard in 1957, trading promotional appearances for pink paint and rose-tinted mirrors, while bodybuilder husband Mickey Hargitay built her a cherub-rimmed fountain by hand. For 6 splashy years, the house glittered with white mink carpets and weekly press shoots, until career stalls, divorce, and Mansfield's 1967 death turned the showplace into an over-mortgaged relic. Subsequent owners stripped its Vegas dream interiors. By the late 1990s, vandals had shattered stained glass and weeds curled around the famous Hart Pool. In 2002, developers bulldozed the mansion, leaving only wrought iron gates, now a cracked pink arch in the brush, where fans filmed TikToks of bygone glamour. Greenacres, Harold Lloyd. Comedian Harold Lloyd called his 45-room Beverly Hills estate Greenacres, but insiders dubbed it the grandpa of all movie mansions. Finished in 1929, the Renaissance villa boasted a 9-hole golf course, a bronze-screened Egyptian solarium, and California's first private Olympic pool. Lloyd's widow lived there in seclusion until 1969. After his 1971 death, heirs fought over maintenance costs, while roof tiles slid and jasmine strangled arcades. Taxes forced a 1975 sale. The estate sat mostly vacant, rented piecemeal to film crews who left scuffs on marble and cigarette burns on silk damask walls. When billionaire Ron Burkle finally rescued Greenacres in 1993, plaster frescoes were flaking like pastry. Today, the restored house hosts charity galas, yet gardeners still uncover rusted golf clubs and nitrate film strips under the roses, ghost reels of a silent film titan who refused to go quietly. The Paramour estate, Antonio Moreno and Daisy Canfield. High above Silver Lake, silent film heartthrob Antonio Moreno and oil heiress Daisy Canfield built a 22-room Italianate Fantasia in 1923, nicknaming it the Paramour. They threw masquerade balls where Rudolph Valentino tangoed beneath gold leaf ceilings until Daisy's fatal 1933 car plunge off Mulholland Drive shattered the dream. Moreno fled to New York. The orphaned mansion cycled through incarnations as a convent and, later, a crumbling orphanage whose children whispered that Daisy's perfume lingered on the grand staircase. Vandals pried sconces loose, pigeons nested in the music salon, and by the 1980s, ivy had split stone balustrades. A designer bought the ruin in 1998, stabilizing frescoes, but leaving bullet-holed French doors as macabre decor. Now marketed for film shoots and weddings, the house glows again. Yet Silver Lake locals swear brake lights flare on the drive whenever fog creeps in, as if Daisy were still searching for home. Bella Vista, John Barrymore. John Barrymore's private Bella Vista was less a house than a 3-acre carnival of opium dens, shrunken head cabinets, and a basement pub paneled with salvaged ship timbers. Bought in 1927, the Spanish villa sat atop Beverly Crest, where Barrymore kept pet peacocks and recited Hamlet to the canyon. After his 1942 death, eccentric add-ons, an aviary-turned guest house, a stolen totem pole, scared buyers, termites and unpaid taxes did the rest. By the 1970s, the roof leaked like a colander, and redwood trunk floors buckled under raccoon nests. Director Tony Scott acquired the wreck in the 1990s, patching beams yet preserving the opium loft out of reverence. Listed again in 2015, much of the wild landscaping remains untamed, and realtors hush clients near the octagonal library, where, legend says, Barrymore's laughter rattles bottles on the long dry bar after midnight. Guasti Villa, Busby Berkeley. West Adams Avenue once smelled of fermenting grapes from Vintner Secundo Guasti's 1910 villa, until kaleidoscopic choreographer Busby Berkeley bought it in 1937, lining its Beaux-Arts ballroom with mirrored columns to storyboard musical spectacles. He screened rushes in a converted wine cellar while his mother filled parlors with Rococo curios. Debt and drinking chased Berkeley out by 1944, and wartime doctors briefly repurposed the mansion as a nurse's hostel before it slid into decades of vacancy. Marble stairs cracked, and squatters lit fires beneath frescoed ceilings. Neighbors dubbed it the Haunted Vineyard. Declared a city monument in 1990, the ruin was painstakingly restored by a spiritual organization that renamed it Peace Awareness Labyrinth. The ballroom now hosts meditation retreats, yet caretakers still pause at the Iron Scroll balcony where Berkeley once hung mirrors, convinced they catch phantom reflections of chorus girls high-kicking through dust motes of sunlight. Enchanted Hill, Frances Marion and Fred Thompson. High above Beverly Hills, screenwriter Frances Marion and cowboy idol Fred Thompson built their 22-room dream ranch in 1925, complete with stables for Silver King, Thompson's famous white stallion. Marion envisioned a garden in the sky, planting 100 avocado trees and a 70-foot pool that shimmered like a desert mirage. When Thompson died suddenly of tetanus in 1928, grief drove Marion to sell. The estate passed to oil heir J. Paul Getty, who rarely visited and let weeds blanket the Spanish tiles. Microsoft co-founder Paul Allen bought the spread in 1997 and, deeming the buildings unsalvageable, bulldozed the villa in 2000. Today, the once fabled Enchanted Hill is an empty, wind-scoured lot, recently flipped to former Google CEO Eric Schmidt, where only a lone stone arch and rusted stable ring hint that Hollywood's most decorated screenwriter once galloped at dusk beneath the pines. Nicolosia State, Johnny Weissmuller. Tarzan's jungle roar once echoed through this faux Mediterranean palace in Bel Air. Olympic champ-turned-actor Johnny Weissmuller allegedly filled the sinuous 300-foot pool with exotic fish and dove from a balcony into its turquoise depths. After his 1940s heyday, the house became a revolving door. Marion Davies reportedly leased it. Mick Jagger lounged here in 1972. Mamas and the Papas patriarch John Phillips let the utilities lapse until daughter Mackenzie scavenged cans of soup in the dark. Family disputes froze any restoration, and a fire scorched the roof. Despite its 1990 historic monument status, the mansion has sat boarded and graffiti-tagged for nearly 3 decades. Chain-link fences and no trespassing signs now guard cracked cherub fountains, while the once glistening serpentine pool lies dry. An eerie monument to the day Hollywood's original vine swinger fell silent. Houdini Estate, Harry Houdini. A century ago, passers-by gasped at the Moorish arches of 2400 Laurel Canyon Boulevard, where department store magnate Ralph Walker hosted his friend Harry Houdini during the magician's 1919 film shoot, The Grim Game. Legends claim Houdini practiced escapes in the ballroom pool. Skeptics note he only rented the 4-bedroom guest house across the road. After Walker died, fire ravaged the main villa in 1959, leaving stone stairways twisting nowhere and fueling rumors that Houdini's ghost returned each Halloween. For 30 years, thrill-seekers held midnight seances amid ivy-choked ruins until a new owner rebuilt portions as an event venue. Today, weddings bloom under fairy lights strung from surviving archways, yet guides still point to a scorched brick wall where chains allegedly clattered on their own, an illusion Houdini might have applauded. Garden of Allah, Alla Nazimova. In 1919, silent screen siren Alla Nazimova bought a Spanish ranch house on Sunset Boulevard and renamed it after her greatest film. She added 25 villa bungalows around a lagoon-shaped pool, turning the compound into Hollywood's most libertine laboratory. F. Scott Fitzgerald wrote screenplays here. Garbo and Dietrich strolled Palm Alleys at dawn. But Nazimova's career faltered, forcing her to sell the hotel in 1926. By the 1950s, neon motels eclipsed its glamour. Vines swallowed Moorish tiles, and world-weary drunks traded gossip in cracked cabanas. In August 1959, 1,000 revelers held a mock funeral as bulldozers idled outside. Today, a Gehry-designed mixed-use project is slated for the corner where drunken poets once skinny-dipped. Only a bronze plaque and a patch of stubborn bougainvillea recall Hollywood's original Neverland. Bradbury Mansion, Hal Roach and Harold Lloyd. Perched on Bunker Hill, Louis Bradbury's 1887 Gothic pile resembled a steampunk castle. 65 rooms, gas chandeliers, and a tower that pierced LA's smoggy skyline. By the 1910s, the neighborhood declined, and film studios rented the drafty halls as a boarding house for struggling actors. Comedy pioneers Hal Roach and Harold Lloyd dubbed it Pneumonia Hall, huddling under quilts while writing gags on fogged windows. When studios moved west, squatters gutted the carved mahogany and pigeons nested in shattered skylights. The city planned a rescue, but on a foggy March dawn in 1929, after years of vacancy, the wrecking crew arrived. Nothing remains today but a parking lot beside the Criminal Courts building. Yet old-timer tour guides still point to the curb where Harold Lloyd's Model T once backfired, insisting the echo lingers like a punchline no bulldozer could silence. Buster Keaton's Italian Villa, 1018 Pamela Drive. Picture Buster Keaton leaning against a marble balustrade, still in grease paint, boasting that he took a lot of pratfalls to pay for this dump. Completed in 1926 on 3.5 acres behind the Beverly Hills Hotel, the 20-room Mission Meets Moorish Palace flaunted checkerboard terrazzo floors, a hidden bar that unrolled into a screening room, and a sun-splashed loggia where Chaplin and Valentino traded slapstick secrets. Yet the grandeur couldn't patch Keaton's failing marriage or the studio system's brutal accounting. When he lost both wife Natalie Talmadge and creative control in 1932, he mortgaged the house, then surrendered it to MGM's fixer, Eddie Mannix. The villa lurched through decades of subdivisions and probate sales until philanthropists reunited the parcels in 2016. Today, restored fountains sparkle again, but preservationists kept Keaton's wrought iron bedroom gate in place. So tourists whisper his silent film gags still slip through its filigree after dusk. Desilu Ranch, Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz. Long before I Love Lucy, a 5-acre citrus ranch at Devonshire and Corbin in rural Chatsworth cradled the couple's first dream home. Bought for $16,900 in 1941, the white clapboard farmhouse sprouted a Cuban-style pool house, a bulldozer-dug barbecue pit, and enough coops for 300 chicks, plus the Duchess of Devonshire, Lucy's adoring cow. Here, Desi tested conga riffs, while Lucy painted needlepoint pillows, and studio publicists snapped photos of the Valley dollhouse to sell their every couple appeal. Traffic, kidnapping threats once the sitcom boomed, and finally suburban sprawl pushed them out in 1956. Child star Jane Withers took over until bulldozers flattened the ranch in 1976 for a subdivision now called Deauville Estates. Beneath manicured cul-de-sacs, locals say orange blossom roots and a single red brick from Desi's barbecue still perfume the soil on hot summer nights. Gloria Swanson's Crescent Drive estate. Silent screen goddess Gloria Swanson purchased King C. Gillette's Italian Renaissance mansion at 904 North Crescent Drive in 1922, turning its 22 rooms into a Sunset Boulevard salon where she staged costume balls lit by carved stone fireplaces. Fame faded. Swanson sold in 1947, and the aging stucco palace stood eerily empty, its red tile roof sagging, gardens choked, until declared structurally unsalvageable. In 2012, developer Mohammed Hadid raised Le Palais, a 48,000-square-foot limestone chateau, on the scraped foundation. All that remains of Swanson's residence are a few Italian marble steps repurposed beside the new infinity pool. Yet star map guides still pause at the gate, yearning for the house Norma Desmond might have called home. Ocean House, Marion Davies, and William Randolph Hearst. Hearst used newsprint millions to crown actress Marion Davies Queen of Santa Monica's Gold Coast in 1929, commissioning Julia Morgan to design a 118-room Georgian mansion with Venetian marble bridge spanning a heated saltwater pool. For 2 glittering decades, Chaplin, Garbo, and JFK danced under seashell chandeliers while the Pacific crashed yards away. World War II rationing cooled the party. Davies sold the estate in 1947, and most of the compound was demolished in 1956, replaced by asphalt parking lots. After the 1994 Northridge quake left even the surviving guest house derelict, the city nearly condemned the site, until the Annenberg Foundation funded a rebirth. Since 2009, the tiled pool and 7,000-square-foot guest house welcome the public as the Annenberg Community Beach House, where sunbathers now float above the footprints of Hollywood's grandest seaside fantasia. The Encino Ranch, Clark Gable, and Carole Lombard. When the King and screwball queen Carole Lombard wed in 1939, they shunned Beverly Hills pomp for a 20-acre working ranch in Encino, citrus groves, gambrel roof farmhouse, and a barn where Gable milked cows for reporters to polish his rugged image. Lombard's fatal 1942 plane crash shattered the idyll. Gable enlisted in the Army Air Forces and returned a widower in 1944, hauling memories more than hay. He stayed until his own death in 1960, clinging to early American quilts Lombard had chosen. In 1973, widow Kay Gable sold to developers. Orchards became the gated Gable Estates tract, and only a stretch of red brick terrace was preserved in a cul-de-sac greenbelt. On quiet evenings, neighbors claimed to hear phantom tractor rumble and a woman's laugh, echoes of a love story plowed under, but not forgotten. Moorcrest, Mary Astor, and Charlie Chaplin. Climb the winding Hollywood hills and you'll spot a gingerbread turret rising from the trees like an exotic storybook castle. Built in 1921 for a Theosophist commune, Moorcrest glittered only briefly under Charlie Chaplin's tenancy before becoming the gilded cage of teen star Mary Astor, whose domineering parents locked her inside while living off her paychecks. For a decade, the Moorish Mission Mansion rang with Astor's muffled sobs, while studios trumpeted her beauty on marquees. When she finally escaped, clambering out a second-story window at 19, the house slid into years of eerie vacancy, its stained glass domes sighing in Santa Ana winds. Restoration came only after half a century of neglect. Today, musicians Andy Samberg and Joanna Newsom polish its alabaster columns, but visitors swear Astor's diary-laden grief still lingers in the painted zodiac ceiling of her old bedroom. 10,050 Cielo Drive, Michelle Morgan, Roman Polanski, and Sharon Tate. Dreamed up in 1941 for French star Michelle Morgan, this French country airy floated above Benedict Canyon like a pastoral escape from Studio Glare. Over the next 2 decades, everyone from Lillian Gish to music manager Rudy Altobelli leased its knotty pine living room, but the summer of 1969 shattered its serenity. Sharon Tate, 8 months pregnant, and 4 friends were butchered here by Charles Manson's followers. The grisly fame made the address untouchable. For 25 ghost-heavy years, the house stood half-rented, its white beams splattered in tabloid flashbulbs and Trent Reznor's midnight recordings. In 1994, bulldozers erased the blood-soaked timbers and the street number changed, yet hikers still pause at the gate, wondering if the canyon pines remember the screams that ended Hollywood's age of Aquarius. Spahn Movie Ranch, Roy Rogers, TV Western legends. Before tumbleweeds blew through its clapboard saloon, Spahn Ranch was a 55-acre frontier playground where Roy Rogers, Clayton Moore, and the cast of Bonanza filmed high noon duels. Owner George Spahn rented horses to tourists while aging stars practiced quick draws on dusty backlots. By the mid-1960s, westerns fell from favor. Weather-warped storefronts, and the once cheerful ranch became a skeletal backdrop for wind-spun creaking signs. Into that isolation crept Charles Manson's cult, who swapped cameras for shotguns and plotted the Tate LaBianca murders amid rotting sets. A 1970 wildfire finished what Hollywood disinterest began, leaving only charred chimneys and a lone hitching post. Today, hikers in Santa Susana Pass State Park trace boot prints through sagebrush, imagining the echo of silver screen hoofbeats swallowed by darker legend. Tesoro Adobe Silent Screen Cowboy. Harry Carey carved his 2,000-acre saugus spread into a Wild West fantasy, Adobe bunkhouse, Navajo trading post, and a Spanish colonial big house where Will Rogers and John Wayne swapped trail tales. Flood, fire, and the 1928 St. Francis Dam collapse battered the ranch, Carey finally sold in 1945, and livestock magnates turned the hacienda into a vacant holiday lodge, leaving murals to fade beneath dust and pigeon droppings. Developers bought the land in 1998, bulldozing pastures for tract homes, but saving a handful of cracked adobe walls as Tesoro Adobe Historic Park. The main house now sits half-restored, its vigas scarred and ranch gates rusted shut. Yet at twilight, the scent of sage and distant coyote yips resurrect visions of Carey riding home against a technicolor sunset the cameras could never capture. Hillhaven, David O. and Myron Selznick. Perched on a misty ridge above Running Springs, the Selznick brothers' mountain hideaway once rang with champagne toasts to Gone with the Wind. Built in the early 1930s as a 13-bedroom Adirondack meets Hollywood lodge, Hillhaven lured Greta Garbo, Clark Gable, and half of MGM to its timbered billiard hall. After David's death in 1965 and Myron's earlier passing, the estate languished. Caretakers hauled the Steinway out for auction. Winter snows pounded cedar shingles, and a mysterious 1980s fire left only charred chimneys and the servants' wing standing. By 1991, visitors stepped through ashen doorways, hearing wind roar through vacant halls where Cole Porter once tinkled show tunes. Today, the site is a heap of rubble overlooking the San Bernardino Valley, yet locals insist on silent nights. You can still smell pipe smoke drifting from the vanished library, where Hollywood's greatest epics were first imagined. Brick by crumbling brick, these mansions remind us that stardom is fleeting, but stories endure. If you felt the chill of vanished applause and heard ghosts in the marble halls, like, share, and subscribe for more journeys into Hollywood's hidden shadows, before time erases the next reel forever.